Record revenue there, but losses widening, those R&D marketing costs, as I mentioned, continuing to rise. What's your message for investors who will be keen to see a return on their investment?
Well, I think the message is that the China EV market is growing at a much faster rate than people expected. If you look at the penetration of the EV market is actually above 10% starting in June. That's much faster than anybody has forecast. So to capture that opportunity, one needs to really invest in the future models, the technology, as well as the sales and marketing and services network, and also charging infrastructure, which we are building. So those actually will spur the growth and for us to capture the opportunity in the next 2 years.
So what's your path to profitability looking like? Is that a couple of years as well?
Well, I think the path to profitability will actually depend on how fast we can ramp up the volume delivery. With the investment that we put in, we're actually much more confident than before to reach higher numbers of deliveries in the 2 to 3 years. And that's also when we expect to reach profitability as well.
You've recently raised funds as well. How do you plan to deploy that?
Well, as stated in our Hong Kong IPO prospectus, the funds we raised, which is about $2 billion US, 40% of that is actually in the area of R&D. The other 40% will be sales, marketing, and services infrastructure build out, and then the rest will be used for manufacturing international expansion strategies. So those are actually going to be used for our business growth.
Investors seem a little bit skeptical when it comes to your plans, at least when it comes to the Hong Kong share performance. Why are investors not buying into your growth story?
Well, I think if you look at the backdrop of Hong Kong since we listed, the Hong Kong market actually has dropped much more than what our stock price has dropped. I think we actually have stood quite solidly since the IPO debuted on July 7th. I think what investors are looking at is really, whether we can actually weather some of the sort of the tech regulatory issues. But I think as an industry, as a company, we actually stood in a much solid background versus internet companies and other tech outfits in China, which are facing a lot more tech regulatory scrutiny. So for us, I think deliver stellar growth as well as making sure we have the foundation that deals with increasing regulatory oversight are the key sort of factors that we're looking at right now.
In terms of regulation, do you anticipate any more?
Well, I think there are quite a few regulations coming out from China regulating anywhere from tech platform to data securities. But I think what I want to say is that our industry, which is the new energy vehicle industry, is actually supported by the government because they actually spur growth and also fit into the agenda of carbon neutrality, etc. So I think we got a lot of support. On the other hand, we definitely also want to make sure the industry is regulated, especially when we deal with large amount of data and consumer information. So that is something I think government is trying to make sure the players pay a lot of attention to. We as a company actually has already spent a lot of time focusing on those issues. And I think those introduced framework actually will benefit the top players like ourselves, who has already have an established channel of communication with regulatory bodies versus other players who are now new to the scene.
Well, the entire auto industry right now is grappling with a shortage of semiconductors. How's Xpeng handling this?
Well, I think the semiconductor shortage is impacting all the players in this sector. If we look at the guidance we gave out for the third quarter delivery numbers, it actually reflect some of the reality of impacts by the chip shortages as well as some of the pandemic sort of constraints that we face to operate in China. But on the other hand, I think as a company that's still small in scale, and also because we are focused on sort of a technology-driven platforms, I think our chip, we actually get a lot of support from our chip suppliers because they see us as a strategic partner for the future sort of growth in the smart EV sector. At the same time, the number of chips that we needed to operate for our volume is much smaller in scale compared to some of the large OEMs. So we actually are more nimble in terms of addressing those issues.
Does that mean that you're not getting any of the impact of the global semiconductor shortage, or where are the choke points that you're facing right now?
Well, as I said, we actually already factored into our guidance with some of the bottleneck in chip semiconductor shortage. It's not an issue with one or two chips because, for example, in our product, the P7 behind me, we have close to 2,000 chips in that vehicle. So any given time, there could be one or two chips that may have some tight supply situation. So we as a company need to deal with that more nimbly. But what I said is that because our volume right now compared to large OEMs is still quite small, so we're actually more nimble in terms of find alternative sources.
How long do you expect those one or two chips shortages to last for?
I think the chip shortage will last well into next year. I think you will see every month or every quarter there's new probably situations in certain type of chips. So I think we will be bracing for that tightened supply chain issues probably till mid next year.
We have seen more issues for Tesla in China. Is this going to benefit you at all?
Well, I think, as a company that competes head-on with Tesla products, our P7 other product actually has a similar smart sort of technology sort of offerings. I think we both, are focused on the same issues. For example, data security and others, I think central to us as well. But obviously, try to compete in a fast-growing market. I think we want to make sure, we can benefit from any opportunity we can get. But I think we want also make sure the consumers are still focused on attracted to the smart EV offering, which I think Tesla has been pioneering in the industry. I think that will also benefit all the players.
Well, this month you shipped the P7, of course, outside of China for the first time, heading off to Norway. Which other markets are you looking to expand into next?
I think we will look at other European countries outside of Norway as a natural extension to our international strategy. Norway and some of the surrounding Nordic countries, I think, has very high EV penetration and also has good infrastructure for EV drivers. So I think those countries will be naturally ones that we look at as a first step.